In a recent interview I did with double Grammy-nominated multi-platinum engineer Ryan Schwabe, he revealed the secrets behind his top-down mixing process. Let's check it out.
Me mixing records, like when you have a producer that's like really good, part of it is staying out of the way. I looked at those mixes and I was like one plugin on each track, maybe a couple, 20% of the tracks, no plugins at all, just leveling and maybe panning. And it was like a
because the production is there.
Yeah. When I'm mixing records, I can't go returning like foreign objects to people. Like I need to return them the same artistic idea, just like 20% more hype. You know what I mean? And so, a lot of times like my approach is like, I want to do as little as possible as a mix engineer and get all of my kind of echoic ideas, all of my like things that I'm hearing in my head done. I'm never stacking plugins that's like one thing's like adding top end and the next thing's like taking away top end and like, doing these like inverted processes that just like.
Okay, that's a really good point that he made there that has been corroborated by other engineers that I've talked to. I recently interviewed Timofey Reznikov, who's David Guetta's producer and primary mix and mastering engineer, and he said the exact same thing. Timofey runs abletunes.com. He's the guy who mixes and masters and approves pretty much all the Ableton Live project templates that go on that site. And so he sees hundreds, thousands of people's workflow. And he said, just like Ryan, that one of the biggest mistakes people make is just overcomplicating their plugin chains and then having things that are actually working in opposition to each other, like a high frequency shelf up in one part of the chain and then a high frequency shelf down in another part of the chain, or gain turning up and then gain turning down by some similar amount between your plugins. Gain staging is important and utilities can be good for that, but overcomplication in the mixing process in general, moving towards minimizing what you're doing, light touches, less is more, okay?
I just find the more and more plugins you add, the worse stuff sounds, right? The more and more bussing that you do, the worse stuff sounds. And so like my mixes, they go straight to the 2-bus. Sometimes they get split to like a music and vocal bus before it, but those don't have any processing on them.
Like that part had me like, wait, what? When I first talked to Ryan, because almost every engineer that I see inside their workflow, I'm seeing this structured busing approach, and that's how I work, and I'm pretty attached to that. I like it. I think it works well. So this is one of those things where it's really interesting to talk to other engineers, consider how they work, and listen to their stance on why or why not behind working a certain way. So let's see why Ryan likes working this way.
And maybe like halfway through, I might do something to them, but they're just there so I can like, if I need to quickly like raise all vocals, I can just raise all vocals.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I love everything just going straight to the 2-bus. I do have like a parallel kind of like distortion on the 2-bus that I'll do often, like overloading like tape emulations and overloading just like some fuzzy stuff. And then
Bobby asked you about that one, right? I remember you talking to him about that in your podcast.
Well, I do a lot of parallel distortion in my mixes so I'll have like parallel distortion on drums and bass and music tracks. And then I'll have a parallel distortion on the mix bus as well. And so both those like vocal and instrument buses go to a parallel track that's like blasted, but then it's like down at like negative 30 dBFS. So when you turn that on and off, it's kind of like this bed of grit and cohesion that holds things together. And it sounds really lovely. And, obviously you tune it a little bit for each production, but it's rare that I ever have to turn it off.
And what are you using? You're using something plugin based? What tool are you using there?
Yeah.
You find is your go-to?
That's all plugins. Honestly, I use the Waves tape machine often. There's like a saturation on there. Maybe it's the Abbey Roads one or something. I forget. And then I use Phoenix. I overload Phoenix after that to like kind of catch some of the high frequencies. And then I usually like high pass, low pass it and make it just like mid-range oriented. And so it's just like between 200 and like 3K or something like that. And
you'll use a linear phase cut filter. To be able to do that so you're not getting any rotation on the parallel. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It just like makes things sound better right away.
Okay, that's really fascinating to hear how he's working there. So he's running a parallel track and he's able to send things to it that from individual tracks. And then he also has it running on the full master. And he's got it band limited. He said, I think 200 maybe to 3K. And he's using linear phase cut filters. And that's a really important point. There's so much discussion on YouTube around linear phase filters are the devil and they're horrible and you should never use them, or you should only ever use linear phase filters because they, all of that stuff. But the reason why he's recommending using linear phase filters here is because when you're running things in parallel that you want phase coherence in, such as your bass and your drums, you don't want those ever to sound smeary, then when those two channels are summing together and one is rotated phase, that's going to cause problems. That's going to cause integrity problems on the transients and in the bass, right? Low level too, right? He said negative 30 dB on this. It's just kind of nudging in. It's not super overt or in your face. It's just nudging in, underpinning the mix and adding some glue and cohesion, like he said.
If I know I'm going to be mastering that track as well, I like put the stems in there, match the demo, master it really quick, like get it loud, and then like do a bunch of colorful bus processing that I might want to do on that record, whether it's like using Spectre or, Vintage Warmer or just like some plugins that kind of just like spice things up a little bit, get it a little bit like nasty sounding, and then go in and mix, be like, all right, what's the weakest link? This hi-hat is super harsh, do something there. This bass line is not sustaining right. Let's do something over there. This kick drum is like way too clicky. Let's chill that out, and then I'll like go through and then, fix problems downward. And then that allows me to like maintain the vision of the artist, but then start to just like solve problems first, get all those problem solves, and then do creative things. Like one of the last things I'll do after I kind of add all these stuff to get the mix to where it needs to be, and then I do all my cleanup stuff, then I just kind of like listen through the song. I'm like, all right, on the intro, like what movement can I put on the intro to make this interesting from a mix perspective? So like each section, I'm like, what I call it like, secret decoration can I do behind the scenes of like things moving, whether it's like things panning or delay effects or like some sort of ear candy in almost every section, but none of them are a distraction. None of them are like, I heard that thing. It's just like some bits of movement throughout each section. So I'll go through, do all that, and then, all the automation that goes along with that. And that's usually kind of like my workflow and then I just try to stay out of the way because that's the move.
Yeah. There's some legit professional workflow secrets there that I think we can all learn from. I really love what Ryan had to say. That was just one of many incredible insights from the interview that I did with Ryan Schwabe. Definitely check out his full interview with me on the Industry Icons series that I have on my YouTube channel at Warp Academy. There's also many other little clips like this that I've pulled out in this series, which is called Iconic Insights, where we just discuss one focused topic. Give me a thumbs up if you like this. Drop me a comment below, and I'd love to hear from you. Are you trying out top-down mixing? What are you thinking about it? Do you work like this? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is there another way of working? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today, and I will catch you on the next one. Cheers.